women are 5 times more likely than men to have suboptimal thyroid health because estrogen is a big mediator and blocker of thyroid hormone action. And like I said before, because of these fluctuations and changes in our estrogen levels now in today's society, that's just one compounding factor.
Welcome back to the Power and Purpose podcast. I'm Vanessa Soul, your host. Thank you so much for investing your time and your energy into tuning into today's episode. I have Amanda Hinman here as our guest, and I'm super excited to have her on. She's a hormone and thyroid health expert, speaker, and founder of Hinman Holistic Health Institute. She helps women in midlife heal fatigue, anxiety, and brain fog naturally so they could reclaim energy and clarity for their purpose-driven lives. Amanda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Vanessa. I'm excited to connect with you today.
Yes, me too. So I want to ask you my signature question. Who are you and who are you not?
I am a woman who believes that living your best life looks like having vitality, energy, empowerment, knowing what is happening in your body, how you're staying connected to your relationships, and really being present for your loved ones. I'm a mom of four. I love being with my daughters. I have 4 girls, and my husband is a high school sweetheart. So they are the kind of driving force of my life and why I'm so passionate about helping other women to feel their best so that they can show up as the fullest version of themselves in their lives. That's who I am. Who I am not is a perfectionist when it comes to living healthy habits and healthy life. It is funny because I have a history of how I got into this whole path was through my own health journey and autoimmune diagnosis. And at one point when I was trying to heal, I was so dogmatic about, food elimination and what I could and couldn't eat, and really, really strict about sleep and workouts and things like that. And I realized that just wasn't sustainable. It actually put my body into more of a chronic fight or flight response. So that's a lot of what I do in helping to support women, is to find that sustainable long-term balance for vitality, which means it's not about doing everything perfect, and really having this beautiful like presence with how you approach your health.
That is so important because just from a personal experience, when I was going through parasite cleansing last year, or I don't know, it probably took me a year and a half. um, the perfectionist thing was real. It it
Mhm.
it took me out. Like, if I didn't do something perfect, the anxiety and the stress of not taking the supplements with the right food at the right time and the right, like, yes, you want to be intentional, but I love that you're bringing to light, like, there is this perfectionist energy that is almost impossible being a modern woman. We have projects that we're working on. We're outputting things into society. We take care of our families, so it's just almost unrealistic to be perfect, even on your healing journey. So you got to give yourself grace. So I love that for the who am I not part. I think I might say that as well from day to day when I need it.
Yes. I think it's a critical part of letting go of the perfectionism, because that's when we really embrace our humanity, right? Humans are designed to have the flaws that go along with the journey. So yeah, I think the greater process of healing is that self-love and self-acceptance, that unconditional love and appreciation of this vessel, this body that we get to experience life in. And it's, recognizing that everything is transient and will change and can shift.
Yes, absolutely. So, one thing that was really interesting to me about your personal story is, and it might have led you onto this path, you could tell us all about it, was your daughter's unexplained seizures. Did that lead you into your work, or were you already in your work? How did that play out? And what was it like, just being a mom and trying to help your daughter?
That definitely played a huge role in the work that I do now to help women just understand their bodies. But it kind of was a precursor. So I had been diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis many years ago when I was actually pregnant with my fourth daughter at that time. And that's when I was living the life of chronic fight or flight, sympathetic, dominant, like go, 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 teaching cardio kickbox classes. I didn't believe I was like healthy until I was sweating, dripping sweat like 2 hours a day, eating salads and smoothies. So on paper, I thought I was doing all of the right things to lead a healthy life. And then when I was diagnosed with this autoimmune condition, I was like, candidly speaking, Vanessa, I was in a little bit of denial and shock of like, wait, what? I'm doing everything that leads to vitality and health and wellness. And that was kind of the first phase of me then going into the journey of trying to heal naturally, working with a naturopathic doctor and having elimination and going into that extreme perfectionist approach to healing my body only to get worse. And about 9 months after my diagnosis was when my oldest daughter, who was only 8 years old at that time, she had always been anxious and highly sensitive as just an individual, but her anxiety escalated, escalated to the point where she was having 10 to sometimes even 15 seizures in a day. And when I tell you, Vanessa, like nothing is more like terrifying. It brings you to your knees. Like for me, I remember like waking up and literally shaking, sleeping next to her because I knew usually within the first 15 minutes of her cortisol awakening response that surge in hormones, she would start to seize. And it was so scary. It's just like you feel so powerless as a parent because you don't know how to help your child. I mean, there were many times where I thought her life was ending. And, we were down with some of the best pediatric neurologists and specialists and running all of the tests. And they said, sometimes these things are genetic. There was no discernible exact reason or root cause of why her anxiety progressed to this extreme with the seizure activity. And she was taking 4 different benzodiazepine medications and swallowing 12 pills a day as an 8-year-old just to be able to make it through a 24-hour period without having another seizure. And it was just so hard to watch my once like witty and charismatic and really sharp little girl turn into just like blasé. The medication was so heavy that it just like totally numbed her out. And I knew that this could not, like, there has to be more to the story. We were told, like, oh, yeah, she probably would never be able to drive a car because of the amount of medication she required and things like that. And I was like, there has to be some other path here. And that's when I was inspired to go back and study functional medicine, which is really about getting a sense of the interconnectedness of all of the body systems, our hormone system, our cardiovascular, immune system, neurology, how everything is linked together, and to look for the blockage, the impairment, or the depletion that's creating this dynamic, which is presenting in her case in the symptoms of seizures, in my case in the symptoms of autoimmune activation, right? So what is like kind of put the puzzle pieces and try and go backwards to see what is causing that. Um, and so that led us on a journey of healing and
Mhm.
really tapping into the importance of nourishment and being able to absorb, have good, strong gut health so that you can absorb the nutrients that you're taking in. Also, be able to balance the nervous system so that you can activate and get out of that fight or flight, activate the parasympathetic on a regular basis. So, really, it was the catalyst to see what's possible. Like not only in 9 months she weaned off of all of her medication, has been seizure free ever since. She's now a junior in college, like thriving, doing exceptionally well. I was able to wean off of my medication, have been in remission, essentially is like what they call it, when your autoimmune isn't active. So it was about finding the balance, understanding our bodies and finding the balance to partner together so that we can thrive. And that's
Yeah,
really what led me to this work.
that's beautiful. What a beautiful story. And I'm curious, and it may not be one definitive answer because I know we could have multiple things happening or multiple root causes, or maybe there's one root
Yeah.
cause and then three causes from that. And but did you ever get a strong sense of the root cause at the bottom of your condition and hers?
Yeah, similarities. So ironically, both like she was a young child, so of course we were not exclusively vegetarian, but predominantly vegetarian in our food, like in our nourishment for probably about 2 years prior to both of our situations, our diagnosis. And at the time, so we were just not consuming adequate amounts of amino acids that are needed to synthesize and generate new cell structure, create proteins, and do so. Part of it was nutrient depletion, another part of it was chronic activation of our nervous system. So both her and I tend to be high adrenaline output individuals. Like our body just produces a high amount of adrenaline. If you don't have some of these key nutrients, especially specific B vitamins and minerals, then your body has a hard time detoxifying and removing those stress hormones from the body appropriately. And that can lead to essentially a lot of excitatory, in my case, it was overstimulation of the immune system. In her case, overstimulation of the neurological system that created the seizure activity in her brain. So, and there's a lot of like kind of multifactorial pieces that go to it of just our lifestyle, our nourishment or lack of for a period of time, and learn. Obviously, a lot of it too is the internal work of mindset is learning to really take note of and pay attention to and tune into, the things that you can celebrate, the things that you have an abundance of rather than lack of. It's, I was perpetually living in the state of never enough time, never enough time. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. And it's like when you live in lack, that signals to your body physiologically a lack of safety, like not enough. You know what I mean? So part of it was the inner work plus the nutrient work plus the gut work, a lot of different pieces. But
Yeah.
um
So interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I could just relate. I won't go too much into it, but my sister also had unexplained seizures or epilepsy, but I don't know
mhm.
if we ever got to the cause of it. She kind of grew out of it. You know how, some people kind of grow out of it, and maybe it's because they do fix the nutrient deficiency or like whatever. Like, some of like, I don't know, when I was younger, my parents weren't keeping track of that.
Yeah,
Holistic health
exactly.
was not a thing, right? Like I'm in my 30s now, so like that just wasn't happening. My sister and I shared bunk beds, so I was the one to go notify my parents, and we're 3 years apart. So I might have been, your daughter was 8. I think I might have been 7, and my sister was a little younger. Maybe I was 8, something like that. But um, that powerlessness feeling that you felt when you spoke about that, I was like, oh man, I felt that during that time, and I didn't really know what I was feeling because I was so young. And I also think my parents too might have felt that because for so long, for a couple of years, she had it consecutively. But it doesn't sound, and I'm not comparing, but I think my sister was like maybe once a week or so, if I remember correctly. But your daughter, when you said multiple times a day, my
Mhm.
heart dropped because I can't imagine what that's like for an 8-year-old to go through that, because that's very stressful within itself. So, yeah, thank you for sharing your story and really just raising the awareness around this. And then also, when we go vegan or vegetarian, most of us have great intentions. I went vegan spontaneously without a lot of research. And I think just intuitively during my journey, I just felt like I was missing some things. And it was probably the amino acids because my energy was down, could have been the B vitamins. Never really got tested, but I kind of just went transitioned into intuitive eating fast
Mhm.
enough or quick enough to where it just kind of self-corrected. Um, but yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to get into your institute and your program just a little bit, just to start. The thyroid and hormone solution program. So, just for timeline purposes, how long were you doing this work before you created that program, or was it something that you just kind of felt super inspired to start because you were like in the middle of your healing journey?
So I started the business and started working with other women, other individuals, I would say about 4 years after our family's personal healing journey, after my thyroid journey and helping my daughter with the seizures. So, but I was massively inspired because I'd be like talking to friends and family because everyone's like, well, how did you heal? What they knew, especially with my daughter, it was much more visible, right? My thyroid autoimmune, you can't really necessarily see it when you are interacting with somebody, but it was definitely a lot of like conversation and inspiration. And then a few years later was when I had the impetus of like, what, it really is a calling. I feel like it was a divine redirection. This didn't happen just for no purpose. I was meant to share this knowledge and share this inspiration to other women who want to feel like they have a sense of collaborating with their bodies and understanding what they can do to heal naturally. So yeah, then about 4 years later is when I started working with women. And over time, I've now had the business for 6 years. Over time, have developed a really, a proven roadmap of these 5 steps. It's actually the same 5 steps that I have in my book, the best-selling book, The Thyroid Hormone Solution, is really helping individuals to understand, like, okay, what is first looking at the root cause? It's putting the puzzle pieces together for your unique body, where your body is now, looking at lab work and functional testing, and also looking at your symptoms, also looking at your lifestyle. What are all of the factors? We go much deeper than when you go to your, primary care checkup and have a 20-minute, visit or consultation. So it's really getting to understand the individual where they are now and what is going to move the needle to help with improving that blockage, that impairment, or that depletion that's creating the unwanted symptoms and dynamics. Then step 2 is all about replenishing nutrients. We know
Uh-huh.
every single cell in the body is nutrient dependent. So depending on where your body may be lacking, getting those core key areas filled in.
Okay.
Um,
And let's do this. Let's tell me maybe like a short highlight of the 5 steps, and then we'll go into those maybe a little later. But like I would love to hear just a preview of the 5 steps, and I have some more preliminary questions. So what are the titles of the 5 steps?
Yep. So it's understand the root cause, replenish nutrients, restore your digestive fire, and get your gut in good balance. Then reset your thinking, and finally remove toxins.
Okay, cool. Amazing. And before we dive a little bit deeper into those, you know, is there a reason why thyroid challenges and conditions are more popular now than I think they were, 20, 30 years ago? Is it just lack of awareness that we had back then, or is there something environmental that's increasing? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
A great question. I think it's a couple of different factors. I mean, one of them, we see a higher rate of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, in particular, autoimmune mediated thyroid conditions. And part of the reason is, in order to have a really strong immune system response, we want to have this peak cortisol awakening response. I mentioned it a little bit earlier with my daughter, but there are a variety of factors, including even most of our exposure to light, natural sunlight, believe it or not, or blue light and artificial light, and especially later in the evening, it can disrupt our sleep patterns, and all of these different changes and disruptions to humans' natural exposure to light or lack of exposure to natural sunlight, and instead of having the artificial sources, that can change our circadian rhythm and affect our cortisol curve, which then has a downstream effect of suppressing immune function, right? So that's one area. Another area is we have a lot of increased exposure to hormone fluctuations. Even just 100 years ago, the typical woman had about 200 menstrual cycles over the course of her lifetime, whether it be from longer pregnant or breastfeeding and pregnancies, and later in life when they would start to menstruate earlier, menopause. There were just fewer cycles. Today, the average woman has roughly 400 menstrual cycles during their lifetime. So that's literally double the exposure to hormone swings and fluctuations in the body than our great grandmothers had. So that means we need to have, again, more nutrients to be able to handle and detoxify and process those added fluctuations that occur over our lifetime. There are other environmental factors too, with exposure to a lot of toxins and xenoestrogens, things that can mimic hormone like effects in the body that come from even our hygiene and our water and different exposures to our environment. So there's a variety of factors of why today, specifically thyroid health, is affected or maybe recognized more than it was previously. And women are 5 times more likely than men to have suboptimal thyroid health because estrogen is a big mediator and blocker of thyroid hormone action. And like I said before, because of these fluctuations and changes in our estrogen levels, now in today's society, that's just one compounding factor.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. And another question for you, why do women in midlife often struggle with fatigue, brain fog, and anxiety? Is it the hormone fluctuation? Is it a variety of things?
It's a variety of things too. Hormone fluctuation is definitely part of it. Again, our body's ability to not only synthesize hormones because we have adequate nutrients to create them, but also to remove and detoxify those hormones after they've been activated. Many women are really low in testosterone, for example, and it's naturally gonna drop off after age 40, typically. But if we're not strength training and moving our bodies, if we don't have adequate amino acids and nutrient consumption, then we don't have the ability to even retain and synthesize like testosterone, which gives you that kind of that drive and that energy and that vitality as one caveat, right? For example, but I do think there are compounding factors with the anxiety and the brain fog. Again, those are directly tied to imbalances between estrogen and progesterone. Progesterone is a natural, anti-anxiety type of effect on the body, but a lot of women have much higher levels of estrogen than they do progesterone. And these all of these hormone fluctuations and changes can really create the symptoms that you're describing, like bloating and brain fog and fatigue and weight gain and things like that.
Yeah, so important. And it's so interesting, like we're not taught this, like I literally learned about progesterone and I can't I always mess up the word. I learned about it like last year when I was reading the book Fast Like a Girl, and I was just like, how have I not known about this? Like I'm a woman in my 30s. Like I need to know, but this is how we can educate ourselves and really raise awareness and like really learn about the hormones, our bodies,
Mhm.
cycles, things like that. My next question for you is how does, you know, the thyroid and the nervous system work together, or how are they connected, or how do they influence each other? Because I wouldn't have thought of those two like in the same sentence like 5 years
Yes.
ago, but it wasn't until recently where I started to become more aware. So yeah, if you could touch on that, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. They're absolutely connected, and many times people don't think of them even being connected at all. But I like to talk about this HPA-T axis of hormone connectedness. And that starts, the H stands for the hypothalamus, located in the brain, right? Our hypothalamus is really kind of the control center of our thoughts, our perceptions, the meaning and the expectations that we have about life, about situations, circumstances, conversations, things that are happening moment by moment, right? The hypothalamus is checking in and kind of making sense of that. Then it signals to the pituitary, and the pituitary gland, also located in the brain, is what helps to regulate kind of that internal balance of our endocrine system, our hormones, and what's signaling and what messages do we want to give out. And then that goes down to the adrenals. Well, the adrenals are the master or glands that regulate stress and immunity. So adrenals are responsible for cortisol. When we think of our stress hormone, they also are where we create norepinephrine, epinephrine, adrenaline. And then finally, it signals back down to the thyroid gland, that HPA-T axis. So if you notice, the thyroid gland is really taking its cues from those areas above it, the hypothalamus, our thoughts, our beliefs, our perceptions, the pituitary, the adrenals, and then the thyroid. What does that have to do with the nervous system? Well, I was kind of alluding to this before, Vanessa. Our, even if we're conscious or not, sometimes a lot of our thoughts, I mean, every single person that they estimate makes 35,000 decisions in a day. And a lot of those decisions are quick decisions based on our interpretation of, am I safe? Do I have what I need? Do I have plenty of time? Like it's like this underlying dynamic of, is your body feeling safe and abundant and calm and peaceful? Or is there some sense of uncertainty, fear, worry, anxiety, lack, right? And that message in our nervous system is pervasive and is going to signal down that chain of, Houston, there's a problem. We have to be prepared to fight or to freeze or to flee. And that is the overdrive of the sympathetic nervous system. So when that's on overdrive, it's going to overtly deprioritize adequate thyroid function, adequate metabolism. So it's not that your body is broken, it's that the signals, which in large part start with the nervous system, like what are our thoughts, our beliefs, our expectations, and our perceptions about the way that what's happening in our life, are signaling to the rest of that cascade. You have to be prepared and be prepared to save your life, even if there's no like imminent threat in front of you. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Absolutely. Such a
Hmm.
great reminder.
Yeah.
I'm like putting my, I'm like really receiving it because I'm guilty of being in that not so much fight and flight, but just like a little heightened than usual. Like I'm someone I could really be in a parasympathetic state and be fine. But when there's not like a lot of demands or dings and emails and like all of that stuff like constantly pulls me out, or I allow it, or maybe lack of, sometimes it used to be lack of boundaries, right? Having
Mhm.
notifications popping up everywhere. Now I just have certain ones at certain times of the day. So I've
Yeah.
learned how to stay informed with my business and all of my projects and things without running myself into the ground. So I'm getting better at that each day. But there's still, as you're speaking, I'm like, oh, there's still room for alignment there. But yeah, it's so interesting. So yeah, now I want to dive a little bit deeper, give us a little bit more context. We can go step by step into those 5 steps that you have in the book. And I think that'll be great. And we'll just do one at a time. So what was number 1 again?
So number one is understand the root cause in your
Mhm.
body. So again, yeah, it's like putting the puzzle pieces together, right? And I think we do this through a combination of looking at some functional lab work plus symptoms, like a symptom checklist and a health
Yeah.
history
And what will
to
the
really get a sense
functional
of, go ahead.
sorry. What will the functional lab work reveal typically?
So typically two of the most useful data points that I like to look at are a micronutrient test. And this shows you, it's actually urine collection, not different than blood. It shows you which of those nutrients, which of those important antioxidants, vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin C, which of the different vitamins and minerals are actually getting absorbed and utilized at a cellular level, which can look different. Sometimes I have clients that have had blood draws and things seem to be fine, but they're feeling symptomatic. And it's like we can see that there's not an absorption happening. So even if you're taking a supplement or you think you're eating the healthy food, this is in my case, I was eating a lot of healthy foods, missing a couple of key foods, but I wasn't absorbing because of that sympathetic fight or flight response. It really limits the capacity of your cells to take in those nutrients, even if it is in the blood supply. So that's why I like the micronutrient test. We also like to look at a urine hormone metabolite test because this tells not only how much of the different hormones your body has, but how your body is processing those. I talked a lot about the detoxification. Is it being adequately detoxified and removed after it's been signaled at a cellular level? So again, with that urine metabolite, we can look at cortisol curve, we can look at estrogen and progesterone and see how your body synthesizes hormones.
Good. I love that. Getting to the root cause. And that's something that in Western medical system, it's not really focused on as a whole. There might be some people trying to change things. I understand that. But it hasn't been part of the tradition. All right, step 2, a little bit more context on that one.
Step two is replenishing nutrients. Like I said before, every single cell is nutrient dependent. We have billions of cells in our bodies. Each and every day, we get to take on board those key vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, amino acids, all the nutrients that are needed to have a really high functioning, you know,
Yeah.
physiology.
Is there one nutrient that may not be as well known or as popular that both men and women really need to replenish, and maybe there's not a lot of publicity around it yet?
I mean, there's many. I mean, magnesium, but there's a lot of people who talk about
A lot of
magnesium.
people know about
Magnesium
that
is
one finally.
Yeah, it's used in over 300 different chemical reactions. Another one I would say is really common for, especially for women, is vitamin B6, because that can be overtly depleted, especially if women have been on oral birth control and they don't realize that. And B6 is such a critical nutrient for neurotransmitter synthesis, also for detoxification. So That is another
Yeah.
one that too is really important to,
Is
I mean,
that the one that
several
will
B
help
vitamins.
is that the one that will help you release water weight gain or inflammation, or am I thinking of another one?
It definitely does impact detoxification as a whole. I
Okay.
wouldn't say it's specifically inflammation, but it definitely is important for, like I said, neurological balance, for mood, and even a sense of like, a lot of times I find there's women who have more of a almost like a compulsive, like ruminating thoughts.
Oh,
It's they have a correlation with very low B6 as
okay.
well. Yep. And like I said, the detoxification of
In
our
the
stress
detoxification.
hormones.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I love talking about some of these ones that are lesser known, because we all know
Yeah.
about magnesium, especially, magnesium citrate, not the greatest. You got to get the other kind. Everyone on a podcast is talking about that, which is great. Love the awareness. But yeah, I think I had to take B6 for maybe someone recommended it to me for detoxification, but I interpret because I associate it more with the symptoms I was having, which was like water weight gain or being extra bloated for like a week or something like that. So very
Yes.
interesting. So replenish nutrients is number two. What's number three again? And what's some context around that one?
Yep. Restore digestive fire. And this is all about gut health and our gut microbiome, our ability to actually take those nutrients that come in through food, through supplements, through drink, and break it down and make it usable at a cellular level, right? That's that conversion from like it comes in, now we have to make sure it can get to the cells. So one of the quick things we do is we help like at home do an at home stomach acid test. A lot of times women have the experience of having heartburn or acid reflux and they assume that they have too much stomach acid, when in reality oftentimes it's actually a lack of or diminished capacity of digestive fire, digestive secretion. And now that stomach acid has just gotten in the wrong place because the top of the sphincter, you're it's basically it's not signaling to close off that stomach area, and that's why you're getting the reflux uncomfortable sensation. But digestion is so critical. And this actually has a large part in connection with allergies and chronic sinus infection and even asthma, because our gut is the primary location of 90% of the immune system. And when we don't have adequate pH levels and different components of the stomach and then the small intestine, the large intestine, that can affect asthma and allergies and different things like that too. So making sure our gut is in a good place and our digestion is strong is step number three.
I love that one. And thank you for mentioning the 90%, connection rate to the immune system. What's the percentage on the dopamine and serotonin in the gut? Isn't that also like 80 or 90%?
Yeah, 90% of your serotonin is synthesized in the gut, and about, like they say, between 75 and 85% of dopamine. So again, so much is happening in the gut that affects our mental state and our focus and our mood and even pain perception and sleep. I mean, serotonin is a precursor for melatonin, which is what helps you to sleep. So gut health is a very central aspect of all areas of health.
It's everything.
Mhm.
That's how I'm going to interpret it for myself. It's everything. All right, I'm loving this. I'm loving this. Number four. What's that one again? And what's some context around it?
Number four is reset your thinking. And this is again kind of we've laid the foundation, we've gotten some nutrients in. Now we're making sure we're getting everything absorbed and digested effectively. At the end of the day, to have that sustainability, that long-term shift and transformation in your health, it's about using brain science to change some of the neurology, because we all have patterns, we all have beliefs, we all have expectations. We've inherited things from our ancestors and from our society and our culture that create that limitation, right? That when I talked before, some sense of uncertainty, fear, lack, not enough, that is going to drive stimulation for the nervous system. So we want to start to identify and become more aware of, like, where am I perhaps operating from a sense of not enough, not feeling like I have enough time or enough support or enough resources. Where is that driving my behavior and my mode of operation? And how can I look at that and reframe that? So really kind of bringing to light some of those subconscious patterns, and then having tools like things like emotional freedom technique and hypnosis that can help to rewire the brain.
I love EFT for stuff like that, feeling like you don't
Hmm.
have enough time or that you're not smart enough or that, you know, that I don't know, whatever you want to replace there. It's so important. EFT is something that you could do quick in between meetings, you know, before you pick up the kids, like you can fit it in. You could find one that's 2 minutes, or you could do an
Yep.
extensive one and really deep dive with yourself and do one that's like 20 minutes. So thank you for mentioning some of those quick tools for number four. And I'll just comment this because I want people to really receive, you know, this. It's like I feel like almost everyone deals with number four at some point in their life.
Hmm.
Or in, you know, some of us, you know, stay deeper in those negative thought patterns for longer than others. But I think the more that you could bring awareness and not shame yourself and not guilt trip yourself or gaslight yourself, the more you can have compassion and really just give yourself the tools that you need in the moment. So thanks for that. Number five, what was
Yep.
that one? Some context.
Number five is remove toxins. So again, it's always important to help the body detoxify to maintain what I call like your total toxic threshold. Your body is always going to have some toxins, right? It's generating some metabolic byproduct every single second. But the key here is the balance, is that you have the support and the strength to be able to handle your daily toxic threshold. And I actually do this different. A lot of times people will start with a detox or a cleanse or things like that. And I actually prefer to do the detoxification from a place of strength. So we have to build up the body first before we're trying to mobilize and remove all of these toxins that have been stored in the body. That's actually going to potentially put you in a worse situation. So
Yeah.
that's why that's step number five.
Yes, and I'm just supporting her with my own experience here. That was probably my biggest mistake when I started my parasite cleansing. I just went in with like all the herbs, all the things just evicting before I strengthened like my gut or um even before I found out the root cause. Like I didn't know like I was you know, I didn't know I had a lot of heavy metals in my system, which, you know, and the mercury fillings. Like I just thought it was just parasites at first, right? So that's why when I
Mhm.
said earlier it took me like a year and a half to really to really get through everything, it was because there was like that opposite order. So do your research, you guys. Work with someone like Amanda. Work with Amanda. Reach out to her for sure. And we're not done yet, but we're wrapping up in maybe in a couple minutes. But if this conversation is resonating with you, it will save you so much time,
Mhm.
heartache, stress, confusion if you work with someone who knows about functional medicine and functional health, because you'll be doing the right things at the right time with intention. So thanks for that. I want to get into some daily practical tips. Um, let's start with, is there a practical tip? I'm not even sure if there is, if this is a thing, but is there a practical tip on how to prevent thyroid challenges? Is it just nurturing the nervous system or is it something else?
A combination of nurturing your nervous system, really being, I think it's taking the time to actually stop and reflect and recognize like where do you get tripped up in life? Is it a matter of scheduling? Is it a matter of planning? Like where is it a matter of criticizing? Like I had this terrible, and I still do, like we all have the inner critic, but man, the way I would talk to myself years ago was not something I would ever say to any good friend of mine, right? I was always I had so much shame and guilt, and you should have done this, and you should have done this, and what's wrong with you? And so it's just starting to notice that type of thinking, that type of pattern of what's the biggest challenge, what's tripping you up, I think from a mental perspective. But then also there is a physiological aspect of it too, of like, how am I nourishing? I like to think of a super simple framework for meals. It's PFFV, protein, looking for like a palm size of protein, fiber rich foods. So something that's like a scoop, if you were to take a scoop of your hand of something that's fiber rich, like legumes, whole grains, different things like that. Um, the other F is for healthy fat, omega-3 fatty acids, and then V, vegetables, like a whole, at least at a minimum, a whole fist of veggies. So if you start with that as a baseline, at each meal, do I have a protein, a healthy fiber, something that's some type of healthy omega-3 fatty acid, and some vegetable, a good full serving of vegetable? That's going to give you a great foundation to build from a physiology and a nutrient perspective. But I said a lot of it is too is is the reflection and the inner work of how are you thinking about your life and towards yourself as well.
Beautiful. I love that. So let's see, as we start to wrap up, there's so much good information in today's conversation. I absolutely love it. Can you give us the title of the book again and where people can find that?
Yes, absolutely. It's called the Thyroid and Hormone Solution. You can find it on Barnes and Noble. You can find it on Amazon, of course. Um, and that is a great starting point if somebody wants to pick up another resource, another tool of inspiration, and a framework to really elevate your health to the next level.
Amazing, amazing. So if this conversation really resonated with you, we have Amanda's Facebook, her Instagram, her website, and a free resource in the description below. So you can click on it and it'll take you directly there. And Amanda, if you have like a powerful quote or another book recommendation besides your own, that would be great. Either one.
Yes, I think when it comes to our health, the key to keep in mind is it's not it's about doing the one thing hundreds of times, not trying to do hundreds of things one time. Ultimately, the sustainability of our health comes down to the things that we do over and over and over. And usually it's the very simple things, but the willingness to just repeat them over and over and over.
Yes, there's so much power in repetition.
Mhm.
So beautiful. And then we highlighted your book. Do you have a way that people can work with you or one powerful offer?
Yes, I do. So the way that people can work with me is to join me first and foremost for a conversation to see if we'd be a fit to partner together in my thyroid hormone solution program. It's a 5-month program, which is a deep dive concierge support to walk you through those 5 steps and really create transformation and healing like you probably never experienced before.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for the work that you do. I feel like it's so needed in our world right now, just with modern life and the stresses and the modern woman and like all the things on our plate. So, thanks again for your time and your energy. It was such a pleasure having you on the show.
My pleasure, Vanessa. Great to connect with you as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. All right, everyone. Namaste and have a great day. Beautiful. How did it feel?
It was fun. Yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I will keep you updated on your release date, and you'll get
Wonderful.
an email from me or my VA, and it'll have like a Google Drive with your original videos and clips and things like that. So I'll let you know.
Wonderful. So I can definitely share and spread the word.
Yeah, awesome. Have a great day.
Thanks, you
Bye,
too.
Amanda. Thank
Bye,
you.
Vanessa. My pleasure. Thank you.